get some more on this now with Shadow Treasurer Ted O'Brien, who joins us live now. So, Ted, good to see you today. What is your expectations when it comes to national accounts released later on today?
Good morning to you, Pete. We'll wait to see what it says, but I suspect we are yet again going to see a big government approach, which is a real concern. If we see really healthy growth from the real economy, the private sector, that'll be good news. But as we know, we're talking about the Albanese government. They've been on a spending spree, and I suspect what we will see is just, again, the government driving the economy. And that's bad news because ultimately that leaves very little room for the likes of the Reserve Bank to be moving on interest rates in the direction Australians want. It also means it's crowding out the private sector to grow the economy, and it means the government is competing with households and businesses for goods and services, all of which drives prices up.
So the OECD warned as much overnight, didn't it, that fiscal consolidation was needed here to stabilise our debt levels. But then you've got a few other things that are happening at the same time. Figures showing taxpayer-funded spending is rising. And then you've got these proposed public sector cuts, or reprioritisations, as the government calls it at the moment, which may well have to be bigger. So how do you marry all of that together?
Well, look, I think the advice from the international institutions seem to be right. They are calling Australia out for just going on a spending spree, and it's not helping the economy. I think the first thing the government has to do is tighten its belt. Now, that doesn't mean taking away funding from key essential services. What it does mean is stop wasting taxpayers' money, stop pouring more government funding into the economy, because that is what is creating these perverse outcomes for households and for businesses. So it all comes back to two things, Pete. Number one, the government has to stop its spending spree, and number two, the government has to start growing the economic pie. It should be about a bigger economy, not about a bigger government.
Sure. So what's your friendly advice then to the Treasurer? Where would you like to see those cuts?
Well, the first thing the Treasurer should do is introduce some rules to contain his spending, referred to as quantifiable fiscal rules. That's step number one. Step number two, he should be looking for efficiencies in government spending. And step number three, he should be reducing waste, so cutting...
Yeah. They are doing that though, right, with these proposed cuts to the public sector. Isn't that the plan, 5% in different sectors across the board?
Pete, who knows? Look, you hear Katie Gallagher speaking, and maybe they are going to cut public servant jobs. But then you hear the Treasurer speaking, and I'm not so sure. They've been very unclear about this, and hopefully today's results will at least prompt some clarity on the part of government. There's no doubt that the public servant jobs have just completely ballooned under the government. They've lost control of it, as they have across all their spending programs. So again, it comes back to enforce some rules. Every Treasurer since Peter Costello has had rules to contain government spending, except Jim Chalmers.
Okay. The Reserve Bank boss is going to be up at Senate estimates today too. Ted, what do you want to know?
Well, I think everybody will be wanting to know a bit of a hint as to where the bank might go next week when they make a decision about rates. But I think that's probably not all that newsworthy, Pete, because we have seen again, because of government spending, inflation figures up, and that means, there's Buckley's chance, according to the market, that the Reserve Bank next week will reduce interest rates. In fact, the market is now suggesting the next move will be an increase in interest rates.
A couple of issues in your house this morning, Ted. First of all, on migration, Andrew Bragg, your colleague, he's written to constituents and warning that cutting migration won't solve the housing crisis. A 100,000 cut to net migration is still being talked about without confirmation, though, from your leader. Are you any closer to locking that in at this stage?
Pete, before long, certainly before Christmas, Susan Lee will be announcing the basic principles that'll be driving our approach when it comes to, population planning, settlement planning and immigration itself. There is no intention at this point to be coming out with a specific number. And that's because we're a good 2.5 years away from an election. You can't trust this government's forecast when it comes to immigration. I mean, they brought in about 1 million people over a 2-year period. So, when it comes to the specific numbers, time will...
Without a number, you'll need a goal, though, would you not? Because how would you know if it's working?
Oh, there's no doubt. This is why the key principles are so key, Pete. You're right. The principles will drive the policy in the detail, and that's what we'll release. And look, Senator Bragg's comments, I read some of those overnight in the press, and I think he's right in that will lowering the number of people coming to Australia have an impact on house prices? Yes, it will. Fewer people who come, you will see demand lessen, and that will have an impact. But it's not the silver bullet here. It's not the silver bullet. The silver bullet, if there is one, is to increase supply. That's the absolute key.
OK, we'll leave it there. That's the Shadow Treasurer, Ted O'Brien, on this Wednesday morning. Thank you, Ted.